Hello, everyone. My name is Todd Fernandez with Climate Crisis Policy, and I'll be your host today. Thank you all for joining us and for everything that everyone's doing in this full court press to try to get some results through Congress and maybe even from the United Nations. I don't have any formal remarks prepared like I normally do for an opening, but just so much is going on. So we have Quentin Scott here from the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, and he's only got a few minutes with us today. So I'm going to take him first, and he's going to update us on how things are going in Congress and what the big action steps are going forward. Welcome, Quentin. Please take it away.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate that introduction. So yeah, I only have a few minutes, so I'll just get right into it and maybe also give a few minutes for some questions if there are any. Last week, Energy and Commerce and the other committees that are focused on the Budget Reconciliation Bill, which is now being known as the Build Back Better Act, passed their budget reconciliation instructions out of committee and put together the package. And so right now the Budget Committee is sort of compiling all those different pieces of legislation that were passed out of the committee last week. And we anticipate that the entire House floor is going to pass the Build Back Better Act, which then it will go over to the Senate. And this is really important because the Build Back Better Act contains a lot of important climate provisions, particularly the Clean Electricity Performance Program, which is going to be the main driver of carbon emissions over the next decade, which it'll account for about 42%, in fact. So this is a very important program, and the Energy and Commerce did most of the work on this program, and we saw a lot of great things that we like in the program. For example, it was funded to $150 billion. It has 4% increase in clean energy from year to year. It also has penalties for any utility that does not meet the year targets, and it has a carbon intensity rate of 0.1, which currently the best performing unabated gas facilities operate at 0.4. Now, I did see in the comments that it does allow carbon capture, gas with carbon capture. It does, but it's not very likely that many utilities would take that path because of how expensive it would be and how unproven carbon capture is to this point to put on top of any sort of gas plants at this point. But the policy does allow for a variety of clean innovation techniques, but because that carbon intensity rate is at 0.1, it has to be very, very well designed for anything like gas to fit into that number. So now that we're sort of going over to the Senate phase, I don't know if I'm sure some of you saw the New York Times article that came out Sunday evening, where it sort of leaked Joe Manchin's sort of priorities and things that he's going to push for that program, which one would actually pay utilities from switching from coal to natural gas, which we don't like. He wants to sort of lower the funding of the program, which we don't like. And he also wants to lower the year-to-year increase from 4% to 3%, which we don't like. So we are in a pretty intense battle right now, where we're throwing everything we can at pushing back against these narratives. So we are reaching out to some of the moderates on the Energy and Natural Resource Committee, which Joe Manchin chairs, and this policy will go through that committee. So we're reaching out to Mark Kelly in Arizona, Hickenlooper in Colorado, and Angus King in Maine to make sure that those moderates are holding the line. And we're also doing grassroots actions to make sure that organizations in those states are aware of this policy, as well as expressing their support for this policy, the House version of the policy that I stated earlier. So that's where we are now. In the article, it stated that it was a leak. So these are things that we're hoping that it was leaked because they wanted to see how people will react to it. And I think it's been a very fierce response to those policies so far this week that hopefully when Energy and Natural Resources sort of unveils their first version of the program, a lot of those things will already be taken care of. And so then we can move forward to amendments and things of that nature. So still a lot of moving parts, including this bipartisan infrastructure agreement, which a lot of the progressive Democrats in the House said that, which we're expecting is supposed to come up for a vote on Monday, the 27th. And a lot of progressives said they will vote the bill down unless the Senate moves on the reconciliation. But because that's such a short timeline, Schumer says that they probably procedurally won't be even able to meet that deadline by the 27th. So we're hoping that Pelosi won't even bring the bipartisan bill up for a vote, knowing that so many progressives won't even vote for the bill if it comes to the floor. And it's really important to make sure we're holding that line, because that is one of the few leverage points we have over Manchin, and we want to maintain that because he put so much of his personal energy into getting that deal worked out that we want to make sure he wants it to pass desperately. So we want to make sure we maintain that leverage as much as possible. So that's kind of where we are, and things are changing every hour. So that is where we are as of an hour ago, and that things can change by this afternoon. So I can open it up for questions, Todd.
Great, and we'll see if anyone has any. In the mean, also, Quentin, can you talk about, so what's the actions now that you want people to take in the next week, and the timeline for any of those going into the Senate process? And is this continuing resolution idea going to bounce the timeline on all of this further down the calendar?
Yeah, so the immediate actions, we are asking folks to send out action alerts to congressional districts of the Energy and Commerce Committee members. First of all, thanking them for passing such a strong clean electricity payments performance program bill, and also sort of encouraging them to, when the bill, because when the Senate makes changes, that bill has to then come back to the House. So when Manchin makes those changes, we hope that when it comes back to the House, they'll push back on any of those potential unwanted changes. So we want to make sure that we're thanking them, number one, and then number two, reminding them to hold the line on their policies. The second thing is, if you're in the states of Arizona, Colorado, or Maine, we want to make sure that all the organizations in those states are already, hitting the ground, reaching out, sending emails, and calling into those Senate offices, letting those senators know that they need to hold the line and pass a strong set program against anything that Manchin is trying to do. And we know the utilities are having a big influence with Manchin. And so we actually have this number called or a website called Call for Climate, and it's the number 4.com. And if you go to that website, you'll be able to connect directly to your members of Congress. And it has a script to help you just sort of highlight the things that we want. Yeah, thank you, Todd. And then to your question about timeline, we were hoping that everything would be passed by September 30th. That is now 8 days away and not likely. So the timeline that we're sort of looking at this point is probably mid-October. Once everything moves to the Senate, they'll probably do 2 weeks of debate there, and then at some point it has to come back to the House. And hopefully when it comes back to the House, they would have done a lot of pre-negotiation. So when the House gets that bill back, they'll just go straight to passing it and then go into the president's desk. So at this point, I would say mid-October. So maybe Indigenous people holiday weekend. And so that's sort of that timeline as of now.
So the continuing resolution, even though if they put that off till December, it doesn't mean that they're going to then have all this time to work on these things until December. They're still focusing on getting it done in October.
Right. Yeah. The continuing resolution to December is just sort of making sure a lot of these other things aren't clashing together, like the debt ceiling and sort of continuing the government. The last thing we need is a government shutdown in the middle of these very crucial negotiations. So that those extensions are just sort of making sure all the different things aren't colliding all at the same time.
Great. And I know this is not squarely in your bailiwick, but do you have any insights about the big oil tax subsidies that were included in the House document and the push there?
Yeah, so I know I'm not following that very closely, but from my understanding is that there was a real push to end all subsidies for big oil and other fossil fuel companies, and it's not very likely that that's going to happen. It might be some reductions in subsidies, but there will be some things included because unfortunately, a lot of Democrat congressional districts also benefit from those things. So that's been a real tough fight to get all subsidies out through this bill. And nuclear subsidies are also included, Sally. Though that's one of the areas where we didn't really make as much progress, but groups are still fighting to make sure that happens in the Senate version. But it's, like I said, it's a really tough fight. And so we'll see kind of where those things end at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, wonderful. So it's all as clear as mud, everybody. We're basically in the middle of everything and everybody's pushing. You just got to keep contacting your congresspeople. I mean, they need to keep hearing from us, I think, is the message, right, Quentin?
Absolutely. Just keep calling your senators, your representatives. A lot of offices sort of keep a tally mark on how many calls they get on each particular issue. So the more tally marks you can get for climate or any sort of particular issue, then they can go back to their bosses and say, hey, we got 20 calls or 30 calls today about this issue. So maybe this is something we need to pay attention to. And this isn't something that we can negotiate away as we're trying to fit everything through budget reconciliation. Wonderful. I believe Catherine has a question.
You're on mute, Catherine.
I'm a little concerned about the CCS, the carbon capture and storage, because of all my research. Most of those projects use up more energy and produce more emissions than they save. So I'm a little bit concerned. It's being touted as pretty much a false solution from everything I've been able to research. So is there any way that can come out, do you think?
Yeah, it is definitely a false solution, and all of the research to this point, they've come up, as you stated, come up far short of what they've been projected to do. And so it's not likely to come out because that is something Manchin cares a lot about as well. He's been very much into innovation over elimination. And so, and he receives a lot of personal income from coal companies and oil companies that want to use carbon capture. So it's not likely to come out. And our political calculation on this is that it is very expensive, that not too many utilities will take that pathway of doing CCS, and that there will be some isolated situations where some utilities will, but that won't be the overall sort of landscape. And so that's something we're fighting for to remove. But if that's where we have to give a little wiggle room so we get other things that we care more about, then that's sort of the political calculation. So that's one of those things, like I said, we won't remove, but we're willing to negotiate around it.
Thank you, Quentin.
All right, everybody. Well, as you can tell, this is it. This is it, right, Quentin? This next few weeks. We hope this is it in the next few weeks, and that it doesn't drag on indefinitely. But delay is the tactic. Oh, Nancy Lawrence, please go ahead.
All right, Quentin, thank you for all that information. I have one question because we're planning a call-in day for my network organizations. It's a network of Catholics, okay, concerned about climate. And we were thinking to do it on the 27th, okay. With the timing of things seeming so up in the air, I mean, do you think there's a better day to do this on?
I think the 27th is a great day to do it because we want to make sure that we're reminding Congress as they're voting on the bipartisan bill, we want to remind them not to forget about the Build Back Better Act and how important that is to achieving our climate goals. And so, that might persuade a few members to vote against the bipartisan bill if they're getting a lot of calls that day. So I think that timing is perfect. Our coalition did a call-in day last week. So I think if we can do these sort of call-in days from various wings of our climate movement, every week or every other week, that'll continue the sort of drumbeat and push. So I think the 27th will be a great day, Nancy.
So, and when you say the bipartisan bill, do you mean the whole package, both bills together, the reconstruction bill or the infrastructure bill and the reconciliation bill?
Yes, yeah. The bipartisan bill is just the sort of the traditional infrastructure only is the bipartisan bill that they'll be voting on the 27th. That was forced by the non-House Democrats or moderate House Democrats that refused to vote for budget reconciliation unless this deal was cut with them.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And so Nancy, you're planning on using the call, I forget, oh no, you're going to use Interfaith Power and Lights that's connected to the Climate Action Campaign for the numbers. And so hopefully those demands and whatever the most recent demands are going into the 27th, all be updated. It might be worth taking also a look at that call for climate set of asks and just making sure it's where you want it to be in this final stretch. Might be a little dated on that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Todd.
All right, anyone else? This is all, I had a thought, but I lost it, so that's fine. They come and they go these days. Anyone else? Oh, Catherine, another one, quick. Oh, we're not in a rush. You're muted.
Yeah, the other day, NPR did a great interview session on Manchin, and it came out that both Biden and Bernie Sanders have some influence over Manchin to some degree, not influence, but they figured out that the best way to influence him is not to try to make him do anything, but to bring him to the facts and let him make his own decision. But I was very surprised to hear that Biden has had some influence, but he's saving his influence for key moments. Like he's not going to jump in every other day and try to influence him. Do you know anything about that? Both Biden and Sanders' influence over Manchin?
Yeah, so Sanders and Biden have been, and frankly Schumer as well, have I think done a really good job of sort of timing their Manchin sort of comments at the right time. We do a lot of work in West Virginia, and one thing that we have learned is that attacking him endlessly makes him sort of even more conservative. So it's about sort of building him up as a hero to be the person that can deliver this and sort of like making him think he came to the right conclusion. So it's a very tactful way you have to approach Manchin. Sometimes it's frustrating because he doesn't get there as quickly as we want him to. But I will have to say that Sanders and Biden have done a really good job of sort of, playing to the tactics that really influence him most. So I think that they'll do what they need to do behind the scenes to push Manchin, and it's on us to do that public pushback across the country and in West Virginia to help push these policies through.
Thank you, Quentin. Thank you.
And on that note, in the email I sent out today, there are 2 documents that are along these lines to try to encourage. So they speak to the benefits in the Appalachian area from the renewable energy industry coming forward, and it seems to have a lot of benefits. And then there's an op-ed about benefits. So everyone's talking about the benefits, and it's probably not news to know that we have to stroke their egos and not aggravate their sensitive egos when it comes to politicians and getting them to do what you want. So that seems like the better avenue. But if you have contacts in West Virginia, and when I'm doing this by state and I want to cause some trouble somewhere I don't live, I go to my Facebook page and I start finding my friends in those states, and I look them up and I say, who do you know and what do you know? And just network a little bit through that. And I'm sure everybody and their brother's already doing that with West Virginia. But if that's somewhere you'd like to have a role, then that's how I would go about it. find your friends there in West Virginia and then talk to them and get them engaged. Quentin, are there external, usually in these kinds of things, there are external phone banks set up. When we worked on the OFAC, we would, the activists would call activists in a particular district and then get them to call their congressperson. Are there any of those kind of relay phone banks set up?
Yes, there are, some of the, big green groups are doing some of those phone banks. Actually, CCAN is kicking off some of those external phone banks next Tuesday. And I'll send you the link, Todd, for it to send out to anyone who wants to participate. We're literally today setting up the landing page for that event. But on Tuesday, we'll have volunteers from other states call into West Virginia to talk to West Virginians about the importance of this moment in climate and passing budget reconciliation. If we find agreement, then we'll do patch-through calls to Manchin's office. And so I know some groups in West Virginia have already been doing that, and they get about 20 patch-through calls a day around supporting budget reconciliation. And we just want to add to the number of calls Manchin's office is receiving every day about this as we approach October.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That sounds great. All right. And then there's the Code Red for Congress, which is another call-in action by Climate Power. Is that part of the same thing? This is where I'm getting a little, even I'm getting in over my head. There's too many things going on simultaneously. It's hard for me to keep track. But is that?
I've seen that. It's not a part of what we're doing. I don't know many details on it, but I have seen emails going around. There's so much out there to do. I just encourage everyone, if you see something come across your inbox, click on it, participate in it. And I think, like I said earlier, this is the moment. Let's throw everything at it we have. Is really basically going to be determined in the next month. So, spend 1 month making it happen.
All right, great. Lisa,
I'll take one last question from
Lisa. Yeah, Lisa, last question, and then we'll let Quentin get back to work. He's got a lot to do. All right.
Okay. Quentin, I participated in a Build Back Better phone bank back in August twice. And I was disappointed in the script, and it didn't get changed. Part of the script was trying to be very fulsome with jobs and environmental justice. When it came to climate change, it only urged Congress to do something. And I was critical of that because approving CCS is something. And I asked them to be very specific. And the script didn't get changed, so I had declined to do any further phone banks after the second one. Has the script been changed so it's specific, so that what we're asking Congress to do for the environment is functional and meaningful? Thank you.
So I'm not sure what group was doing that phone bank. I know the script that we're putting together for our phone bank is specifically talking about the clean electricity payments program and climate provisions. So we're going to get into the very clear details of what we're asking for. And we're just not talking generally. We're talking about exactly what the policies are and what we want Manchin to support. That's part of the reason why we're setting up the phone bank for ourselves, because a lot of the other groups we will partner on with, we're just generally talking about passing budget reconciliation. And there was a unwillingness to get into the specific provisions of budget reconciliation. And so this is our sort of response to, well, let's talk about, let's do 2 days a week where we're talking about exactly what we want and not sort of generally, telling Congress to act.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's very helpful. And then with everybody, when you make your calls, feel free to say what you want to say.
Absolutely, Todd. Absolutely.
Don't be conscripted by the script. All right. Well, thank you again, Quentin, for everything and all the work that everybody's doing. And it's quite a team effort. And it's very exciting to see how much action, even though it's a little confusing because it doesn't matter almost. It's like it does matter, but it's just great that everybody's doing something.
Absolutely. Todd, thank you for inviting me, and it was a pleasure talking to everyone today.
Always. You're always welcome here. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. Let's see. All right. So let me just run through a few quick updates, and then we'll just talk. I don't have a full agenda today, and I'm not sure if Felice is coming or not at 1. I haven't heard from her recently, and they're very busy, as you can imagine. So we'll see if she shows up if we're still on the call at 1. Right now, actually, that whole team is doing a briefing to the movement at 12:30. People would have been welcome to go to that. And well, anyway, I don't think we'll cut out now to go to that. It'll be similar to what Quentin said anyway. So let's see. Extinction Rebellion had a great action on Friday in New York, and several people arrested at Chase Bank, and then a big march from the library to the United Nations. We passed by the Brazilian consulate. Catherine spoke at the end of it. I spoke in front of the United Nations. I basically said it's time for a vote of no confidence in the United Nations system. We could talk about that more going into October, but I have a master's of law in human rights and democracy in Africa, and I studied international law in there in 2008 and looked at all the United Nations efforts, and I couldn't identify a single one that I thought was a success story in all the areas in which they work. So it's not surprising that the climate arena isn't similarly situated. That's where I focused since I was standing in front of the United Nations and there was a die-in in front of me. We'll talk more about that going into it, but our push is going to be on the treaty. Let's see. We can talk about the treaty in a minute. The other big action this Friday is the strike, Fridays for Future strike. Everybody probably knows about it. The location in New York's meetup has changed from Foley Square to City Hall Park, which is just a few feet away, not very far. Still 3 o'clock. They're looking for marshals. Anna wrote asking for marshals. So if any of y'all want to go do marshalling for that, the meetup and then is at noon instead of 3 o'clock, and they'll do a training right there on the space. I don't know if Ed is here today. Well, anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. The Earth Bill. I've had 2 great meetings with legislative directors, staff about the Earth Bill getting filed. And so, I'm guardedly optimistic. We'll see. They're talking to their bosses this week, so we'll know. And I put them in touch with one another. So we'll be, going down that path. We don't have a firm date, but we're looking at October. Sometime in October, hopefully, to get it filed. So if you have any last thoughts about the content of that bill, please take a look at it and send those to me. I'm hoping that it's not going to get much tweaking. I've been revisiting it lately myself, and I thought it was pretty solid. And of course, we'll have some other experts look at it. We're also looking for co-sponsors and organizational endorsements. So now's the time to get your groups to endorse if they haven't yet. And so everyone who's endorsed before the filing, we will call the original supporters of the Earth Bill. And you will go down in history if we get this bill filed as part of the group that was behind it when it started. So that'll be exciting. And we'd just like to have more groups to list on, any events. I'm thinking it might be fun to launch the Earth Bill in conjunction with the October 20th strike, with Fridays for Future strike on October 20th, but I just floated that idea with them. We had talked about it before, so I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's just a ballpark angle. We're also looking in a crazy way at Republicans. The plan would be to file it with just a couple sponsors. Oh, here's Ed. I wanted him to talk about something. And then invite, the way I'm told it works is better just to get it lined up solidly with the 2 lead co-sponsors, or 3 maybe, we'll see, and get it filed. And then the week before it's about to be filed, they send out a notice saying, we're about to file this. Would you like to co-sponsor? So once we know that timeline, then we'll be sending it out more broadly. In the meantime, and this is crazy, frankly, but I'm curious about potential Republican co-sponsors of the bill. And, we know that this is a hard line with the Republicans, but we've made a list. Eric is here. Arnhem, maybe you could say a couple words about this. And Artem and I are looking at Republican districts where there have been really severe disasters. And so this is all over the coast, lots of parts of California, some parts of New York. Any quick thought, Eric, you want to say about that? Eric has been, y'all don't know Eric Arnhem as much, some of you, but Eric in the Off Fossil Fuels Act and Climate Mondays, he was the man behind the machine that we went after district, and we figured out who to target. And it was a full court press. We got almost 50 co-sponsors for that bill. And Eric was the man behind the machine, like I say. Eric, any thoughts about our little Republican hunt?
Thank you, Todd. Well, it's going to be a hard lift because, they are so against it. But what I was suggesting was we look at the League of Conservation Voters. They rank all of the legislators based on their votes in the past on different bills. And I've already taken the list of the top 10 GOP scores, and I didn't see any correlation with storm damage, but we'll keep looking. And, we'll find people who, whose districts have been, devastated by climate change. Maybe they'll have a change of heart. Maybe they're the low-hanging fruit in the Republican machine. So we'll keep looking. Any suggestions, please send them my way. We've already found, Jeff Van Drew in southern New Jersey. He has Gloucester County, which is FEMA disaster zone. So, he's a good prospect. But the sad, maybe it's a good problem to have, is the good problem is that there's so few Republicans in places like California and New York and New England. So they're hard to find, but they're plentiful in the South, the Gulf Coast, Florida, even some of the Atlantic coast. Back to you, Todd.
Thank you, Eric. So we'll be on this little hunt. Here's the League of Conservation best vote tallies for Republicans that Eric was just referring to. That list is there. So as you look at these lists and these states, this will be sort of the fun part. It's like an Easter egg hunt, really. Looking for the less crazy Easter egg. I shouldn't say that. I forgot this is being recorded. So anyway, we'll see. It's a long shot, but this is the frontier. Ultimately, if you're trying to pass a bill like this, obviously, if you can break through the resistance of the Republican Party, that would sort of open the floodgates potentially, so to speak. So anyway, it's not going to be, we're not going to invest a lot in this effort, but I'm going to be writing the legislative directors and exploring, and we'll see. You got to go fishing, cast a wide net, and you never know who's going to come forward. That said, for your own congressional districts, and if you've adopted your district in particular, now's the time to broach these topics. I know several of you are. Maybe I'll just invite Ed and Peter, if you don't mind, just to talk a little bit. Peter, why don't you go first, since Ed just got here, and just talk about the meeting you have coming up with Bonavici, and just as an inspiration to everyone.
Hey, thanks, everyone. Good afternoon, I guess, to all of you on the East Coast, and if anyone's on the West Coast, good morning. So thanks, Todd, for sending out the Earth Bill update. I've been reading through the new language, or the really just slightly modified language, this morning, and we are going to meet with Suzanne Bonamice's legislative aide this coming Friday at 1 o'clock our time to go over the Earth Bill and to see if she is willing to consider co-sponsoring it. And we have some other asks as well. We have one recalcitrant Blue Dog Democrat in our state, Kurt Schrader, who needs a big push to line up with the rest of the Democratic caucus in support of the Clean Energy Performance Program. So we'll be seeing if there's some common ground between the two Oregon representatives, such that Representative Bonamici might work together with Representative Schrader on aspects of the reconciliation package in order to get his support for the Clean Energy Performance Program, which he doesn't really support yet. So those are the things that are going on out here, but I'm really excited about the Earth Bill. It's much closer to what is necessary, and it's important to have the conversation about what is necessary, and that's what we want to start doing with our with the relationships that we have with these staff people. And they get it. Most of the staff people are young. They're in their 20s. They're, a year or two or three out of college or grad school. They're really interested in policy, and they recognize that the Clean Energy Performance Program is, necessary, and it's what we can do now, but they also recognize that it's not enough. And they're interested in having the conversation about what is enough. And so that's how we're framing it. And that's what we want to talk about with our Congress folks, and in this instance through their legislative aides. But that's what's going on in Oregon.
Thank you so much, Peter, and the whole team out there. I'm scared of y'all, and I'm in New York, so I know y'all are applying some serious pressure to some of those Congress people. So Ed, I just want to invite you up because I know you're on fire in Florida, not literally, but you're cooking with steam down there, and I'm not even sure what phrases we can use anymore. Just to give a few words update on what all you're up to. I know you're taking Florida by storm, and you're getting districts adopted. You're having meetings. What's the latest? Good to see you.
Yeah, well, we've had basically 3 effective meetings. The first one was with the staff of Representative Deutsch. Well, 4, I guess. We're about to have the 4th. We had a meeting with Representative Christ, who is somewhat of a middle of the road Democrat, and I'm currently working on a presentation for Representative Val Demings, which we're meeting with tomorrow. And she's a little bit conservative, but I think she's pretty much supportive of everything in the reconciliation. Of course, we're mainly pushing the reconciliation, and as part of pushing that, I make a point of all the issues that have been brought up in our research about the Earth Bill that obviously go beyond what the reconciliation package does. I actually have a link to where we currently are, and I'm going to make another recording of the changes I'm making now, and I can share that with you folks as to what we're presenting to both try to get their support and well, I mean, obviously we have most of the Democratic support for the bill. We're trying really hard to get a meeting with Murphy, who is definitely on the fence. She's one of the 10 conservatives that was objecting to not voting on the infrastructure plan. And we're trying to design a presentation for them. Now, when it comes to Republicans, we did meet with Rubio's staff. That did not go particularly well. But, I think we made the point. I mean, there's no way we're going to get his vote. But it's partly because of the social issues. He is, at least, he talks a good game about being supportive of climate. So, maybe he would be interested in the Earth Bill. I think it's still a stretch, but he is more open to it because he obviously lives in an area that is highly affected by climate change, namely the Miami area. When it comes to someone on the coast that's a Republican, again, that talks a good game is Bill Abrakis, although his voting record doesn't show it. We're trying real hard to get a meeting with Representative Bill Abrakis as well. That's about as far as I can tell you. We have several constituents from Republican areas, but not the ones that have been, unfortunately, the ones that have been affected by the storms that we've hit this year. Go back to you, Todd.
All right, that's wonderful. And you met with Rubio's staff. That's very impressive. Good job. Good job. You got to push both sides of this equation, everybody, as we've always said. So Ed, there's a list of Republicans in the chat there. I don't know if it was before or after you joined the call. Here, let me just add it. I'll put the Florida ones here again in the chat. So I don't know how we got to these. Art, maybe you know how you got to those. But these are somewhere we think there's been bad storm impacts. So if we could focus on these together a little bit, Ed, and I mean, even if we, so the first step will be, we'll email them and say hello, and that's probably not going to go anywhere. But then we would start to look for climate activists and climate groups in their district. And this becomes more of an interesting Easter egg hunt, so to speak. And so anyway, if you just keep an eye on that list, Ed, and let's just please stay in touch with you and me and Art and Eric. I'll add you to that list. And anyone else who's in this Republican, interested in this Republican angle, we have some in New York on that list, I think, and Staten Island. But anyway, you get the idea. Let's stay in touch and work on this. I'm not even sure if the Democratic folks we're talking to would like a Republican. I'm sure they would, but I didn't broach that because it's so far afield of a possibility. All right, so that's the Earth Bill Action Report, Adopted District, and if you haven't, Greg, any general numbers on the Adopted District? I know I asked you late to.
Yeah, I can give you a little bit about that. Let me just see. Just looking briefly at it, we have 212 people that I know of who are involved in our adopted district effort, and I've counted 101 districts of those people are covering. I think the states of interest that we don't have a lot of districts, one is Florida, where we currently, I think we have covered 3 districts that I know of. Idaho is 1, Indiana is 1, Minnesota is 2. I don't know how many districts there are there. There's 1 person adopting in Montana. It's just 1 district. 1 in North Carolina, 1 in New Mexico, 1 district in Pennsylvania, 2 in Tennessee, 3 in Texas, 2 in Virginia, and 1 in Wisconsin. There's great efforts in other states like Michigan, New York, and Illinois, but that's all I have for now.
Great. Those are still wonderful numbers. So we'll look to expand that, of course. So Art is saying the Florida districts are all coastal and floodplains. So yeah, we're just looking to expand and solidify and obviously double down as we go into this next phase, which is basically as the Congress wraps up its work, we're going to be saying, we're trying to get it over the finish line as part of the team effort. And we're saying that's a great start. These are the kinds of incentives and financing and infrastructure build outs that are necessary, but not sufficient. So that's how we're pivoting. We're not alone in this. Lots of organizations, including the groups that we're talking to about potentially sponsoring it, are saying basically the same, posturing the same way. So this will be a perfect pivot. If we're able to get it to fly in October, it'll just falling right on the cusp of that. Like all these incentives are great. Now we need mandates so we can have a real timeline. So that's the pivot. And then the treaty thing, which I'll touch on next, pivots well into that because the treaty would be the international element of a ban on fossil fuels or a ban on greenhouse gas emissions, however you want to word it. But this is really the pivot in the narrative that we're trying to accomplish, that we want to ban greenhouse gas emissions, ban greenhouse gas emissions. I got the group to chant that in front of the United Nations repeatedly. So we have the 3 options. Well, I'm not sure how many, but there's the Paris Accord, which still is talking about market mechanisms. So basically a big international trading scheme, which is clearly outdated at this point and not in favor, but that's the main piece there. And then they relegate non-market, they call it market mechanisms and non-market mechanisms evidently. And so just the conversation is at a ridiculous place. There are no mandates, no timelines, no enforcement provisions. So I think the Montreal Protocol is a good plan B, that it, to do something like that for greenhouse gases or just add greenhouse gases to it. The other way is this fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. Another avenue could be the Security Council could declare a climate emergency and could direct all sorts of change through the World Trade Organization and elsewhere. The bottom line in my assessment now is that Plan A, the UN Convention on Climate Change, has failed entirely 26 years later to even put a dent in greenhouse gas emissions. So it's time to call for plans B, C, and D. One planet, failed Plan A, it's just 26 years later, it's just sort of obvious. And as I've said, and I don't want to harp on this, I don't want to upset people about the United Nations, but in my understanding of it, they have not successfully solved any of the world's problems that they tackle. So we do really need to be thinking in a new direction there. So we encourage everybody to support the treaty. CallIn International is going to support a call for the treaty. We're building up on it. Fridays for the Future Strike on Friday is calling for the treaty. So as you can see, we're trying to build a groundswell in October for this treaty concept to hopefully gain some traction in the international narrative around this. We floated it through the Catholic arenas, but I don't think that took. I'll be picking that up a little bit, Nancy. And then I think next, if unless there are questions about any of that, just to touch base on this October organizing that's happening in DC. And Lavona, I know I didn't give you any advance notice, but you're following it closely. Would you like to introduce it? And while she's deciding, there's a full court press. Go ahead, Lavona.
Yeah. Hi, yes, full court press. This is a nonviolent direct action aimed at President Biden to take executive action on climate issues. I've put in the chat some information about it. For those of you in the faith community, they're encouraging clergy to come on the 12th and then other faith leaders on the 13th. This is joining general people as well, but there'll be a special focus on that. And it's kicked off on the 11th with Indigenous people. There will be a march to Capitol Hill on the 15th, led by youth. And so there are organizing meetings on Tuesdays at 12 o'clock. And there's another action that I actually wanted to mention for a lot of people who are unable to come to Washington or support this. Green Faith, which is one of the main organizations organizing this action in DC, is to participate on October 17th and 18th, which is a global action, days of action, focus for faith people in congregations on the 17th, and or actions on the 18th in front of government buildings and banks. And so that can be a sort of an add-on or another hook following up after the action that's going to be here in Washington, D.C. Anything else I should mention?
Wonderful. No, I think that sounds great. Lavona, what's the name of the park where they're going to have a station? They're going to have a permitted park where they're going to be all week, sort of a base camp.
Yes, so the base camp is let's see, that's at
it's McPherson.
Yeah, at McPherson, and then it's only about a block and a half to walk to the park, Lafayette Park. That's right in front of the White House. And so they'll be gathering at about 8:30 in the morning, and by 9 o'clock they'll be walking over to the location in front of the White House. So this is a direct action. They're risking being arrested, which is like getting a traffic ticket in DC, about $50. But you don't have to risk arrest if you're coming. And there are a lot of people actually East Coast that are coming down from New York and between New York and here. And just show up at any of that time to support the actions and the people who are there. And there's training events that are going on. And the toolkit, I put a direct link to that if you want to dive deep. And also there's promotional information in there and logos and things. And even if you're not here, also use kind of tweeting about it on that day. Those are opportunities to sort of just raise our voices again.
And what's exciting in part about this is the demands to declare a climate emergency and then to use the military to build renewable energy capacity nationwide. It's, I know, well, it's the first time I've heard a demand coming from the climate movement writ large at that scale. So I think this is a very important shift in the movement strategy and a big moment to be lifted up. And so I'll be down there. I think I'm going all week. We'll see. I plan to just be really mostly in a support role. I'm just going to figure out how to plug in and support and be there. And we might also come up with flyers.
Todd, can I ask a little something? I just want to add a little something. Yeah, Todd, going good. No, yeah, you guys should look at the demands page on that website. I was so impressed because it's all the stuff that the focus is Biden. Biden's a target. And of course, our group here, it's legislative, but there's all kinds of stuff. It's all stuff he could have already done it like Trump did, right? As the king president, even for now, it's all like a lot of executive action he should have already done, and he could still do this, right? So it's a little different. It's like he is the target, and he could have already done a lot just himself. Over.
Wonderful. Are you going, Maple?
Yeah, Amtrak.
You are going. Peter, you're going too, right? Who else is going? Peter, you have a delegation go out. Lavona, you live there. That's not fair, but good.
Yeah, the Oregon folks are limited. There's a few people that went to Minnesota that are going back to Minnesota and then to DC. So it's like a long haul for a few people that are more or less full-time activists, but it's a small group, maybe 3 or 4 folks. And they're Indigenous too, actually. So they're going to be there for the Indigenous Peoples' Day and the Indigenous Day of Action.
Catherine, Nancy, I don't know if your hand is from before, but yeah. Catherine.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add.
Watch has a bus going down.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Catherine.
I thought you called on me. Yeah. Food and Water Watch has a bus going down Wednesday, and there will be a training Wednesday night for people who want to participate in the NVDA. And Thursday is the action, and then they'll be coming back. So that's for people in New York City who would like to go down. And you could contact Alex Beecham with Food and Water Watch. And he can let you know about the Tuesday Zooms to discuss these things.
I thought the Zooms were on Monday at 4 or 2, and I went to one on this week, but maybe they moved to Tuesdays.
I think it's Tuesday. Yeah, Alex said Tuesday, but I haven't been on it yet.
His must have been, but I had Monday at 4 o'clock, the People versus Fossil Fuels. That's the link I sent out today.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that must
So
be a
that's another
Food and Water Watch one, right? That's good.
Tuesday.
Yeah, the focus on Thursday is Fall Solutions Day, so that makes sense. That was the day I was planning to be there. And those trainings are around 5-ish at that McPherson Park for the DA training. But you're right, we don't have to get arrested. You can just go as support, but they're trying to make it so that more people do get arrested, so it's a press thing, but you don't have to.
Yeah, I've been arrested 3 times, and it was a little more than 50 when I was. But anyway, I think it's worth it.
Wonderful. Lavona,
The organizing meeting is at noon on Tuesdays, every Tuesday. And then at 4 o'clock, there's a different faith-based sort of organizing group at 4 o'clock. I think that was one of it's a more general ongoing event planning for grassroots mobilization.
All right. Well,
But it's
if y'all could just send me the latest and any information you see about buses from New York or anything like that, send it to me and I'll compile. You know, we have a few weeks left, so not really. October 11th, that's so soon. But any more latest updated stuff from New York, travel options, et cetera, I'll send another blast out next week, I guess. Nancy, sorry you wanted to get in on this.
Okay, no, people may have said this already, but I just wanted to say the invitation for this whole week of action is coming from frontline communities, communities that have been affected by environmental injustices. And so it kind of gives a whole context of environmental justice to the whole week. And, they've asked for support. And so I just think it's a great way to support is to join this effort. And Lavona, did you say that Tuesday was the day for faith groups to participate? Yeah, okay. And that Green Faith.
There's actually 2 days that they're primarily focusing on for clergy in particular on Tuesday and other faith leaders on the 13th on Wednesday. But these are not limited to these groups. These are just kind of trying to bring focus to having them there. Clergy needed to be early because they need to get back for usually weekend services.
All right. Well, this is all wonderful. We'll keep pushing this out. And if you could all help push it out once we sort of see promotional materials. I mean, I know they are out there, so I'll look myself. I'll try to do a post that's just about this so it's easier for you to forward. But the real bottom line is we're trying to create some noise here. and to really turn up the heat, so to speak, on the Biden administration. So you don't even have to be there to do that, but it does require everyone to promote it, send it out over your list, and then once it happens, to really help be the echo chamber while it's going on that week. Because we're trying to not just take an action, but for me, these actions, like all of our earlier actions this year and they get other people to take actions, and that you just never know what's going to be that inspirational spark. So these are the moments where if we lift it up, then you'll see in November and December, and you'll just see how it starts to ripple and things pop up that you can say, I think that person did that because they heard of this from me. So that's my push on that. All right, Felice is here. Yay, Felice, hi. So welcome.
Hello.
And just to let you know, we had Quentin Scott here this morning, giving us a little bit of a pretty solid update really on where things stood. So some of the lift might have been done for you today, but we're still always glad you're here. And please, everyone's in it. They've heard, about the timeline and the House. We heard a lot of updates. So, but go ahead again. I'm sure whatever you want to share will be appreciated. So go ahead.
Well, thanks. And I was just checking the chat and make sure that there wasn't anything that I need to pay attention to. So thanks for always inviting me back. And I would say I don't want to be repetitive. And maybe what I could just do is, because it's a bit of a smaller group today, I know sometimes it's a really big group. And maybe what I could just do is just see if folks have questions and start there. If you've just been inundated with updates, and then I can share a little bit about kind of what feels most urgent and critical from my perspective. Does it make sense just to kind of give folks an opportunity, if you have questions that have emerged from the updates you've already gotten that could help answer?
They asked a few questions earlier too. So I think maybe it's better if you go ahead with your most urgent and whatever you want to bring us into.
Yeah, happy to do that. Okay. So say, and I'm sorry I wasn't privy to what Quentin shared. I would say two things. One is delay is not our friend here. In some cases, in some administrations, and in some congressional or legislative sessions, delay is good. In this particular case, delay is bad. And so, and every day if you open the paper, when you open the paper, I think you all read the paper, when you open the paper, we are inundated with really, really critical real-time crises that are unfolding, that are taking the attention, and rightfully so, the attention of Congress and then the attention of the administration. Nevertheless, this is a really, really important priority of the Biden administration, of the White House, and it's it's a top priority for leadership in the House and the Senate. They want to demonstrate that they can get stuff done, big things done. And the Build Back Better agenda or act with a small a, because there is no bill called the Build Back Better Act, but the Build Back Better Act agenda, the entire kit and caboodle, is of utmost importance to leadership and to this White House, and to get it over the finish line. So holding the Democrats together as one is the most important thing. I mean, I'll be really honest. Yes, there are things that we may not like, and yes, there are things that we would love to change. We're not the ones writing the bill. That's not what we're doing. What we're trying to do is make sure that we don't miss this opportunity, even if it means that by the end and by the time it gets signed by the president, there may be things in there that we just don't love. But having some things that we don't love is better than having nothing. And I'll be really clear, that's exactly where we are. And so holding the Democrats together, reinforcing how important this is, reinforcing that we can't afford to leave millions of families behind, millions of jobs on the behind, and that we need to kind of put our the pedal to the metal and get this over the finish line. So that's sort of my kind of initial sort of opening salvo for sure. So what does that mean for the group? Well, there's a cluster of members of Congress that they don't need any convincing that this is important. So they're gonna do their thing. There are progressive members of Congress that don't like it, and they're going to continue to be very vocal. They can continue to be vocal, and probably the ones who are most vocal are not running the risk of getting reelected next year. So at-home politics matters, and the members who are most vulnerable to losing their seat next November are getting hammered. Just this morning, there's an article in the paper, and I'm happy to send it around, or Todd, if you have it handy, you can just put the link in the chat. There's an organization, kind of a conservative, fiscally conservative, and otherwise probably who knows all the other issues that they care about. They just announced a $7 million ad campaign for 1 week to hit House members of Congress who are vulnerable. And that's a lot of money for House districts, for House members. And the ads are tough. And so what we want to make sure is that every member, every lawmaker feels protected. They feel protected at home with their constituents. They feel protected by local civic leaders. So if you know of a civic leader who has not yet reached out to a member of Congress and said, hey, we got your back. This is really important. We got your back. If there is a business person, if there's anybody in the business community, I don't care how big they are or how little they are. If there's anybody in the business community who has not yet been brought into what the opportunities are here and what's at stake, if you have any time and bandwidth, and get that person, can be private, pick up the phone and call a member of Congress, say, hey, this is really important for our families. This is really important for our economy. This is really important for our environment, for our planet, for our children's future. Please call member of Congress, tell them to vote for this, and remind them we got your back. Those are really, this is the moment to make those phone calls. I can share with you a list of House members that are likely getting beat up the most, so to speak. And if that's helpful, I'm happy to share that, unless that was shared previously. Todd, was that already shared with this group?
I've been sharing the list that you sent me of key targets, and I've shared it in our last two big blasts. Is that the same list?
Well, there was a new list shared. So let me find it. It was shared just yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And let me see if I can find it and send it around. And the thing to keep in mind here is there's going to be two groups. It's kind of a long list. I'm only going to give you last names, but hopefully it'll be sufficient. So what you're going to see is there's two lists, a reminder of what's at stake. So these are members of Congress that need to be reminded that our climate's at stake, clean energy's at stake, economic development's at stake. Here, I just posted it. And that if they care about climate change, this is the vote. They can't say that they care about climate change and not vote for this bill. There is not going to be another bill. There will not be another bill or another opportunity for these members to demonstrate their commitment to clean energy, to climate progress, to making our communities safer. and our neighborhoods cleaner if they don't vote for this. So the first group is a reminder of what's at stake. Many of these are the ones getting hit by that ad, the $7 million ad buy. The next group needs some love. They just need a little bit of love. They need to hear again from you all, from folks in your networks, family, friends, anybody who lives in these districts. Again, it doesn't have to be visible. It doesn't have to be super public. If you don't like being public, advocacy comes in all shapes and sizes and forms and functions. Some love being out front with a sign, rah, rah, take a picture, go on Twitter. Other people feel more comfortable writing a letter. Some people like the phone, and I'm all about phone. Some people would prefer to just walk by the door, by the office, knock on the door, see who opens. It might be the scheduler. It might just be a staff person. It doesn't even need to be the member of Congress. Stop by and say, hey, you know what? I'm reading the paper. I know this is really important. I'm seeing the ads. I just want to, I want Representative Axie to know, this is really important. It's important to my family. Bring 3 other people with you, even better. But it comes in all shapes and sizes, forms and functions, and we need it all. And if I sound anxious, it's because it's in a pretty precarious spot. On the Senate side, I'll share some senators that would also be really important to keep in mind and keep in your sights. Senator Hassan from New Hampshire. Senator Casey from Pennsylvania. Senator Warner from Virginia. Senator Tester from Montana. Senator Manchin from West Virginia. Senator Sinema from Arizona. Senator Brown from Ohio. Senator Warren from Massachusetts. So these again, there's a lot of discussion. Is the number high enough? Not high enough? Does it have everything we want? Does it not have what we want? Stay away from the number debate. Doesn't matter. Just focus on the importance and the opportunity we have, and the importance of staying together, united, to get this over the finish line for our families and for our communities. Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema are the loudest, but Tester and Senator Warner and Senator Casey. I mean, there's several others that are also a little concerned about the price tag, a little concerned about how big it is, a little concerned about inflation. All things that are legitimate. We're not going to debate that inflation isn't a real issue. Believe me, I feel it every single day. We all do. But most important is that we keep the eye on the prize, and that's getting this package over the finish line through both chambers and to the president's desk.
All right, wonderful. Well, all right, so everyone can hear it. You can feel it, you can hear it. On the upside, Climate Reality Project has 50 legislative visits scheduled in the next week.
That's wonderful.
Yes, lots of groups are doing mobilization, as we know. And Felice, earlier in the call, we had CCAN's call-in number and plan next week, and I've shared the call for climate. There was one, we were trying to get an 800 number for Nancy, but I think she's all set through the IPL now, so which is part of CAC too. So we just didn't know who to give the individual 800 numbers, but I think that's squared away. Yeah, Nancy, you're fine? Or did you need anything? Okay, she's all set. There'll be a phone call in on the 27th for that. Nancy will also be promoting that, of course, with you all. That's everyone.
Yeah, I know. I think we're good. Thank you.
All right.
But I want to pay attention to the messaging from what Felice just said too.
So I'm just trying to segue a little bit into what actions, we get the general concept if there's, and now we have these specific names. So if any of you are in those areas, and Quentin also mentioned Kelly in Arizona and Hinkenlope in Colorado and somebody in Maine. I forget who.
Yeah, so in Maine, it's Representative Golden,
Oh, it was a senator, I thought, but maybe it was a House.
a senator. Oh, Angus King.
Hmm.
Yeah, so the list, yeah, you can add Hickenlooper, you can add Kelly, and you can add Angus King, who's an independent in Maine, to your list.
Hmm.
Those are good additions. I just forgot. I was going by memory, and that is not a good thing to do at my hour of the day.
No worries. All right. Our team also met with Senator Rubio's staff in Florida, and we have congressional meetings happening all over the place. And we're all talking about all these kinds of things. So our teams are in it. And any questions for Felice?
I'm trying to send to you the, okay, I'm going to see if I can find the ads for you that are running.
Oh yeah, that would be interesting to see.
I found it.
Oh, good.
And I'm going to put it in the chat. It's a YouTube link. And it will be many of the House members also are continuing to have town hall meetings. Really, really important. And even if we could just get one person to come and ask a climate question and share the importance of investing in clean energy, really, really valuable. We had one yesterday. AARP is hosting a lot. LCV is hosting some. The lead immigration group is hosting some. Don't worry about who's hosting it. It's come one, come all. Everybody's invited. No matter if the main issue is immigration or the main issue, some of the unions are hosting them with a member or the lead organization that lined it up. But there are many that are being lined up. There is a broader tracker. Todd, do you share the broader tracker with this group?
I'm happy to. The list of all the group folks that you're focused on, I didn't share that, but I'm happy to if you want to.
Well, there's
too much.
There's just a really big list of town halls where as they're getting.
Oh yeah, we've shared that in the past. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, we have shared the town hall link a long time ago, though. I think we've lost track of that idea.
Okay, this is the one that Build Back Together organizes. So I'm going to share the link. Oh, I have to. There might be something I can share broadly. I'm sorry.
No worries. It's too much information anyway for everyone, I think, probably.
Well, you could look at the one from, do you share the one from Climate Action Campaign?
I've shared so many things, I'm starting to lose track of what I'm
okay.
I have to be honest, I'm losing track, but go ahead and put anything in the chat and I'll capture it myself and make sure to include it in the next blast. And anything you send me, I try to send. I've shared the full CDC when you send me an external, the CDP, the Combined Defense Project. In answer to somebody else's question, Quentin is from the Chesapeake Climate Action Network.
Oh, okay.
But somebody asked in the chat who he was from. So I'll just keep sharing whatever you want to share, Felice. No worries. We're sharing everything. I think the thing is it gets a little bit too much to share. So we have to zero back in on one ask, one phone number to call and, one pitch at some point. But that's okay. Everyone's doing what they feel most passionate about. So it's fine.
Yeah, I would say at this point, the best thing to do is if you are not on the email distribution list from your member of Congress, get on that because you will be the one first notified if they're having a town hall. So if Representative Bordeaux in Georgia decides on a Wednesday that Saturday she wants to have a virtual town hall with her constituents, she will send out a message saying, hey, come join me. There's lots of trackers where we're trying to keep track, for everybody to know. But what she'll care about most is just people from her own district showing up. So that's the easiest thing, is to get the information and get on their distribution list. And you can call them and ask them, or there's probably a place to find it on their website. And then in terms of phone numbers, just call the district office or call their federal office. Again, all of that should be easily accessible.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, so it's full court press time. Any last thoughts? I mean, everybody's mobilizing. We're doing a Manchin push. We have a Schumer push. We have the Clean Energy Payment Plan push. We have People versus Fossil Fuels actions in DC. We have the strike here, a global strike on Friday. And then we're looking ahead toward getting our Earth bill filed and to the COP26 journey and that debate. So we're all very much in it. This is sort of as exciting as these things get, right, Felice? You sit and sit and sit for years and wait, and then all of a sudden it's here, and it's still a lot of sitting and waiting, but it's happening. So I think we have to keep our spirits up and our positive mojo going forward. I struggle with this myself all the time. But we just, that's the hard part, you got to buckle up and get back in there and keep fighting every time. So that's where we are. Any closing remarks, Felice, or last thoughts you want to share?
No, I just shared the direct link to the events that at least Act on Climate is tracking. It may not be all inclusive, but this is just one you can keep open. You can have it bookmarked. And again, if you are, if you're interested and able to join any of the upcoming town hall meetings, please do. I think what I'm going to do before I hang up is I'm going to find out the town halls that are in the queue, because it won't be hard to share. So I'm going to share right now, and all of them have hold on, links for RSVP. We did just hear the first one listed here is the kind event that was just canceled, but this gives you a sense of just how much activity there is. So the ones that I just mentioned, there's the Bordeaux one, Cartwright in Pennsylvania, Fletcher, a really important one in Texas, has one there. So again, no shortage of information, and it's really just figuring out kind of what feels like you're able to contribute.
Claude, you got muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Hi, Ann, you have a question?
Hi, yeah, I'm wondering, is there any effort to put together a competing ad about that level that would focus the importance of climate action to protect our economy? It seems like those voters are focused on inflation concerns, but there are even more inflation concerns related to not acting.
Yeah.
Is there any money being devoted to those kind of ad blasts to make people feel uncomfortable? Not, in the past there was, in Sweden, voters were being urged to vote down taxes, and there was actually a push, and voters actually voted for more taxes because they got the message that they needed that in order to avoid even more problems.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and absolutely, there's right now there's already been a lot of ads out in many ways. we were outspending the opposition, but now the opposition, because they know that votes are like imminent, they have now unleashed the dog, so to speak. So there is a lot of money set up to do to either do new ads or to do to dial up the ones that are already in process. There's been an effort to have a coordinated story that reporters would write about. So when they're writing a story about these ads, they can also say, oh, and by the way, the groups that are advocating for climate change are putting in a $10 million ad buy. But sometimes reporters like just, focusing on the one because they want to stir up controversy. But I do know between Climate Power, League of Conservation Voters, NRDC Action Fund, EDF Action Fund, and EDF, that's just naming a few, are really ramping up our paid ad campaign. But money goes fast, and so we have to also just make sure that we can be prepared in case this drags on.
So on that, Felice, I think it would be, I always have this angle that we need to spend more effort letting the activists of the movement in on what's going on and making them aware that these fights are happening at that level. So to the extent, Blast can go out with saying, here's the opposition ad and here's our ad, please, repost our ad, and basically give us a tool that we can use as a grassroots amplification of your ads. And that helps to augment the money, but it also helps to get the activists a little bit more excited. So it could be, here's the opposition, here's ours, click to share ours, and here's the phone number to call. So something simple like that, boom, boom, boom.
So, I totally appreciate trying to kind of winnow down because there's just so much incoming. And I think, Todd, I know that you're on the CAC distribution list that Courtney Foley has set up. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to distill down, this is the most important thing to focus on. This is the message of the day. This is the action of the day. So there is some of that's, what I sort of call curated content. Some of that's already coming together. And I think that can be really helpful. If there's a particular state you're really interested in, or you say gosh, I have a relationship with, I don't know, Luria's, I'm friends with Luria's campaign director, or my sister knows the staff director of Representative Axney. It doesn't take long to find someone that you probably know that knows the member of Congress, and you want to have that ad. We can provide the ad. But Todd, I do think that Courtney's trying to create kind of winnow that down, and if you're able to just flip it quickly to your list. I can't flip anything to you guys. I rely on Todd. So Todd, if you can just flip it. The other group that does it is the Combined Defense Project, and they have a really nice new feature. It's right at the top. It says, if you do one thing today, if you make one phone call today. So Todd, I know you're on that list as well. If you can just keep your eye out and see that's related to reconciliation, to just cut and paste and flip it to this group.
I do. I'm monitoring all those and sending them out. So I'll touch base with Courtney about this other idea for an email blast. But all right, great. Everyone's doing incredible work behind the scenes. I'm seeing it everywhere. So that's all exciting. If you think back, Felice, earlier in the year, it was a little bit quieter, and now look, boom. So bravo to everybody who's lifted all this up and taken action and gotten others too. All right. Well, we're going to end on a high note, and we're going to continue after we formally close the call. I'll stay on for a few minutes and answer any other questions that the team has about our internal work. I just want to thank everybody for sticking with it. And I know it's been a roller coaster this year. We're not done yet. So let's keep rolling and keep at it. Thank you, Felice, for everything.
Thank you. Thanks for everything you do. See you.
Our pleasure.